This is Self-Starter. Hello friends, welcome back to Self-Starter, a podcast that highlights small business owners, the self-employed and freelancers who have taken the plunge to create their own desirable lifestyle. My name is Andy Dowling. I'm also the host of the Andy Social Podcast. I play bass in the Australian metal band Lord, and I'm a dispute resolution specialist. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook by following @AndyDowling, or you can go to selfstarter.com.au where you can learn more about yours truly and anything and everything to do with the small business, self-employed or freelancing world. So make sure you go over there and check it all out. This week's episode is with Carley and Tess of the Dog Monocle in Nowra. Yes, that's right, the Dog Monocle. The Dog Monocle is a steampunk supper club that's located in the heart of Nowra. And I'll let Carley and Tess explain their business in great detail because they'll do a much better job than I will. But this is a really cool story about two people that have known each other since they were kids, and the business has been formed off the back of their friendship. And it's just a really, really interesting story. And the overpinning or the philosophy around their business now, after being up and running for the past 6 months, is about belonging, and the way that they interact on a day-to-day basis and communicate and just talk to their customers is absolutely incredible and really, really exciting. And I think for anybody that is self-employed in any facet, I think you're going to get some really, really cool things out of this episode. So make sure you stick around and listen to this one. It will be right up your alley, I'm sure. As always, you can go to selfstarter.com.au. You can check out all the show notes from this episode, including links to the Dog Monocle. Actually, speaking of which, I'll note them right now. So you can find them on Facebook. So go to facebook.com/dogandmonocle, which is DOGANDMONOCLE. Or you can find them on Instagram by searching DOGANDMONOCLE, Dog and Monocle. So very easy to find them. They've got a lot of content on there and you can get a real taste of what they're all about. But as always, selfstarter.com.au is the place to go for all of the takeaways, all the information, everything that we discussed in this episode. And if you want to follow up and have further chats with Carley or Tess, you can certainly do so through those channels. Enough of me. Please enjoy this episode with Carley and Tess of the Dog Monocle.
Lots of editing is about to happen.
Oh, that's okay. I've got plenty of time. So I've just started recording now. Thank you both for inviting me in early before you kick off your, I guess, normal day of operation.
No worries.
Yeah, thanks.
I guess to get it started, and so people that don't know about the business, do you want to introduce yourselves and what the business is?
Yeah, okay. So I'm Carley.
I'm Tess.
So we own the Dog Monocle. Dog Monocle is, well, something a little bit different, especially for Nowra. We're a Steampunk Supper Club. Which sort of requires a lot of explanation, we find, and people are happy to talk to us about it.
It's lots about sharing, so we want to share our space with people, and we want people to feel that they can then share the space with their friends, and I think our food and our atmosphere reflects that as well.
Yeah, the supper club vibe is about more than just a restaurant. We find people are really getting used to us and exactly how much we interact with our customers in the restaurant and how much we want them to interact with the space as well. And the steampunk thing just is because we're big geeks and kind of we find that the vintage geekery allows people to come in and enjoy the space without necessarily being geeks themselves.
Yep. That's fantastic. And how long has the business been open for now?
It's 6 months now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's still new, like it's still in its early stages.
Yeah. I don't think it'll ever stop being new for us because we're always coming up with new ideas. So it's like something around the corner always.
And I think that's really shown through our remarkable events. So we run a series of events during the year. Some of them we will do every year and some will be more like, oh, we saw something shiny and we liked it, so we decided to create events around it. So we're doing Dia de la Moites again this year. Okay. We've got a midwinter feast, which will be sort of based around the pagan, it'll be during the winter solstice, steam week, most importantly. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. So
backtracking a little bit, what's both of your backgrounds? So what were you doing before this idea and this concept came into play?
So I've been a chef for 18 years, so always been in hospitality. I always wanted to run my own place, but the opportunity never sort of arose. Tim and I own Hop Dog in South Nowra, so that has kept us very busy. So that's pretty much me.
And I'm sort of a different kettle of fish altogether. I'm a clinical psychologist.
Oh, right.
Normally. I've never wanted to own a restaurant before. And And for me, the whole Dog Monocle concept is born out of friendship, really. So one little girl in kindergarten asking another little girl in kindergarten for a play date, and mum's hitting it off, and then that kind of awkward moment at some point in the friendship where I turn to Tess and go, so do you guys play Dungeons and Dragons? And from there, it's kind of like there's no limitations on our friendship. And as Tess said, we're always coming up with kind of new creative things. So we're both the kind of personality type where someone says something and the other person goes, oh, yeah, that's great, we could do that. And then the next person goes. So that's kind of how it's come about, that a clinical psychologist and a chef ended up building a place together.
It's match made in heaven.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tess, you've obviously had a lot of experience with the brewery, sort of getting a business up and running, but with this, and really being conscious of the area, and you mentioned it straight away, it's a bit different for the area. What were the fears or the challenges of getting it up and running or making those first few steps to make this into what it is now?
I think a lot of it is, again, that Nowra has a strong... Everyone sees Nowra as being a $20 town. If it costs more than $20, Nowra is not going to touch it. And I think that was probably one of the biggest things is, we don't see ourselves price-wise as being unreasonable, but it's one of those things that to make sure that everything we do actually reflects who we want to be, keeping a very strong sense of identity, but ensuring that we can still operate and manage in town. Yeah.
That we're approachable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's because it is different, and it's got that eclectic vibe, and using the steampunk term as well. I can only imagine that, trying to explain this to people in the area and the initial getting the word out to attract business, there would have been a bit of that extra explanation to try and get people on board to understand what it's all about.
Yeah, it's lucky that Tess and I like talking, really.
But Facebook, we opened with nearly 2,000 followers on Facebook, so we had quite a strong Facebook following before we even opened, which shows, I think, that Nowra was ready for something new, something different. They were looking for somewhere to come to that was a little bit where they could get dressed up and that they could show off to their Sydney friends. We find a lot of people do that. We've got friends down from Sydney, so they absolutely book in. And I think that's nice that Nowra is proud of having an establishment like us, because I think that sort of really shows to us that it is something that Nowra wants and that we'll continue to support as well.
And to be honest, it didn't really even occur to us that we were sort of taking a risk, or it was like a brave thing to do, until everyone told us when we were building it, wow, what a brave thing this is for you to do in an area like this. And we went, oh, okay. We just kind of assume that there's lots of people like us out there, and we were lucky because it turns out that there are.
Are you both locals? Have you always been locals, or you're from other parts of...
I like to always tell the customers that I'll never be as local as Tess because I'm not related to most of Nowra. Sorry, Tess.
It's a very rare evening if I don't know half the restaurant.
Oh, wow, okay.
Whereas Neil, so we're a military background, so we've been in and out of the area for 15 years, but I don't think that will ever class us as quite local.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And leading up to, you mentioned having the Facebook page and having a couple of thousand people already there, so you got a bit of attention already towards the business. But your launch day, your opening night, how did that build up? What sort of how did you sort of, I guess, going through a lot of the fears of, is this going to be successful? How's that first night going to go? But also just what sort of tactics did you take to sort of get the word out there to get people to come along?
It was kind of a chaotic approach, to be honest. We found out that we had our licence approved, was it the day before our opening night had been scheduled for? So we sort of just crossed everything and hoped for the best. But I guess having that Facebook following and putting out a few teasers throughout the planning process, through our social media, gave people a way to connect with the idea. And then people stopping and talking to us on the street while we were doing the renovations, and because we've always been so hands-on, we're the ones out getting products and talking to people as we're getting products. So people kind of knew a bit about our story already, and were keen to just come and check it out. So, we opened with a week's notice for opening night tickets, I think, and we had pretty much a sellout for the opening night, which we were really pleased with in the end.
Yeah, I think, lots of cool things, taping up the windows, everyone's a bit of a sticky beak, so everyone likes to have a little look, and there was like little cracks in the windows and that sort of thing. And when we had all of our Chesterfield's couches and booth seats delivered, there was sort of moments in time where the street was littered with Chesterfields. So, there was lots of people seeing what was going in, but couldn't see the whole finished product. So I think that was kind of fun too.
Intrigue and mystery. Everyone loves a little bit of intrigue, I think.
Absolutely. It gets a little bit of buzz going.
Yeah.
People start talking. And because it's still, it's a large area. There's a lot of people here, but it's got that small town vibe. And just what was alluded to before, so many people in the area, word gets around, and so people talk, and so if something's just a little bit different and a great, whether it was a conscious thing to really sort of tape it up and or have those little elements of sticky beaking, it's definitely helped push that gossip, push that sort of talk in the area. So it's obviously very effective.
Yeah, I think so. I think any time you can sort of offer teasers without ever kind of fully delivering, I think that's proper clever. People like a mystery, so which is good because that's what we are.
Yeah. And so 6 months in now, are you relying on return customers, or how are you getting yourself out there now in advertising and building sort of that clientele?
Well, so we do have a lot of sort of loyal return customers, and I guess it is building from there because we find that all of our loyal returning customers want to bring all of their people. Yep. And so they'll come back, countless times with different combinations of their friends, and then their friends come back with different combinations of their friends. We're starting to find that with just our, I guess, hit rate and people reviewing on various sites, that out-of-towners just happen across the Dog Monocle more and more frequently, which is really cool. But we're building relationships in the steampunk world as well. Okay. So that's been a really exciting element for us. So we offer a display space for cool steampunk artisans, people who just generate really unusual artwork, and having those connections. Those people also say, if ever down South Coast, check out this place, it's really different and unusual. So it's that kind of word of mouth is still filtering out there.
It becomes more than just a place to eat and drink. It becomes a location. It's a hub for people that have that taste.
Yeah, we've never been about just a place to eat and drink. It's more about the theatre than that. And as Tess said with the remarkable events that she mentioned earlier, that's because we just get so excitable about so many things. That's why the next thing, it's Steam Week. And we're going to have tea duelling and parasol duelling and all sorts of other cool bits and pieces. And we've found with all of our events so far that has been the thing. It's more than just coming and having a meal with us. Burns Night Supper wasn't just about coming and having haggis and Scottish fare. It was about listening to the bagpipes, people getting up and having a go and reading out poetry, and everyone singing Auld Lang Syne together at the end. And it's just, when people come together around something exciting, it's really cool what happens.
We had a long table for the Burns Night Supper as well.
Cool.
It wasn't booked by one particular group. There was lots of people together, and in the end, at the end of the evening, when I come down from the kitchen, there was actually two distinct groups still sitting at the long table who hadn't met before but had come together over this, and they're like, cool, next year we'll just have a table for 4 instead of a table for 2. So I think that's nice too, that creating a space where people actually feel comfortable to then interact with people they don't know, because they're both wearing kilts, so that's a good enough reason to come together as any. So I think that's lovely.
So it's, as it stands now, it appears to be more of an organic growth of feeding off the first few people that came in, building that story, building the excitement and I guess the unique flavour of what this business is, rather than doing the old traditional, I'm going to go and put an ad in the newspaper, I'm going to go and try and get on the local community radio and try and do all those old forms of marketing and advertising. You really it's feeding off itself.
Yeah, we've quite specifically sort of steered clear of that kind of advertising. we prefer for people to sort of wander on by and walk in and go, well, what is this? And then have that actual conversation with us about it.
And I think a lot of that too is actually built from local business connections and things that we have and are developing. And I think that's so important in a town like Nowra, that, that recognition that, oh, hey, how you doing? Like, I saw you at your shop the other day, and like, I love that you've come here as well. And I think that's, I'm sure every town has it, but I really like the way Nowra sort of really comes together and supports each other, like in that sense.
It seems to be, well, at least it appears to be far more important in more regional areas to have the support of that area rather than being in a city. And you sort of, I'm sure you still have an element of community in your pockets and people in that area, but I think in regional areas where maybe stereotypically the opportunities aren't as varied or plentiful, that you rely a lot more on the community sort of to really sort of bolster and support.
And I think we're lucky in a way because, I guess we're afforded the opportunity that people who get new, fresh customers in all of the time don't get that opportunity, where we actually end up knowing a lot of our regular customers by name and knowing their story and what they like and building those relationships, which is, really important to Tess and I.
Yeah, I think the more you know your community, the more they feel that they actually own part of you as well. And I think to create a restaurant like this and not want that community feel and for people to feel like they too own part of it would be a very naive thing to do. We had a group in here, one of my favourite nights, and we have a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, just because, that's entertaining. And 8 of them sat down, and they were here for 4 or 5 hours, and they just sat here and did a jigsaw puzzle. And that was like, it's just that, let's just do it. And that's cool too. And that they then regularly still come back. They don't quite attempt the 1,000-piece puzzle any longer, but...
That was ambitious, yes.
That was very ambitious.
But I think it just highlights that the space is comfortable enough where time can actually stop for a moment. I think, the way that we all function on a day-to-day basis, we're always sort of looking at the next distraction, the next shiny thing, and to be able to walk into an area where time just stops. And that's probably the best example of somebody that's actually willing to sit down for several hours with a jigsaw puzzle, something that can be very tedious, but be completely comfortable and just immerse themselves in that.
And I think even time actually almost goes backwards a little bit here in a way. We play all of our old sort of pre-war era tunes, 1940s, 1930s, and because of that and just the vibe of the place, lots of people take away something different from it. We have lots of older folks in that sort of really connect with it and think that, well, the Dog Monocle must have been built specifically for them. But then the younger generation's really connecting with the old school, manners and vintage vibes, which is cool.
Tess, you mentioned before about other businesses in the area and connections that this business is building. What sort of, well, maybe not partnerships, but alliances and agreements and things that you've got set in place with other businesses in the area? Like what sort of, I know obviously with the connection with Hot Dog, so there's that sort of relationship already there, but do you have other sort of things that you've got in place with other businesses in the area?
Nothing as formal as that. It's more like the lovely folks down at the Game Cave. It's not a formal agreement, but we head down and pick up our games. They let us know what new games are in. We ask them to order games in. They come up here for Friday night dinner because who wants to cook on a Friday? Yeah. We have regular taps on with the guys from Five Barrel in Wollongong.
Yeah.
That would probably be our only sort of formal agreement where one of our taps is theirs. Everyone else it's more just, it's not even supporting, it's certainly not, oh, you came to me, so I have to come to you. No. But it's that I know that where you're from and how's your business doing, and we can sort of share a little bit in that, like, oh God, have you had a quiet week as well, because it's, or oh, I saw that you did that event and how did that go for you, and sort of feeding back through those just the opportunities to see and reflect in an informal way of what's working for other people and what the community is asking for as well, I think, and through the local business ownership we can...
A bit of market research and a bit of emotional support.
Yeah. And even, just we get people who know of a musician, or even just yesterday where we've been looking for our midwinter feast, given the connection with nature to do with that, we've been really keen to find a cause that's really important to our local area, to do with the local flora and fauna. And we didn't quite know what that was yet. We had our ideas, but we knew that there were other people out there that knew more about it. And we have a lovely gentleman who comes and joins us every week for lunch from work, who we knew worked in that kind of area. And so just because we know and talk to our customers, being able to sort of go to him, and now we think we've got a cause on board that is going to be really great to support. So it's that just knowing a little bit about people opens your world up.
Yeah, it's amazing what actually is happening in the Shoalhaven, and once you start asking, it's a really big place, and there's some really interesting jobs and things that people do, and their backgrounds is, and it's nice to see that, again, that community spirit where everyone's willing to share what they have to, like, not only better our business but help, different charities or to sort of further expose the things that they're interested in as well. And I think it's really nice to see.
I think just that power of communication and actually having a conversation with people, because I think a lot of us make assumptions. We've got prejudices and we look at sort of things, and there's all the stereotypes. And if you open a local newspaper, there's always the hot topic of, the lack of opportunity or an industry shutting down or unemployment. And so I think people sort of gravitate towards the negative and probably don't make a lot of effort to dig deeper to see what opportunities are out there. So just the simplistic approach of just having a conversation with the people that come in here, you've got a wealth of opportunity at your fingertips, and then you just discover more and more.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think we even take that approach not only with our customers but also with our staff, and particularly sort of having Carley on board. It's really important to us to have those conversations with our staff so we understand where they're at, where we can help them be, and to offer that proper support through story time and things. We always have like a little moral question of the day sort of thing, and I think it's really nice, and to be honest, the staff really look forward to it, and it just sort of helps them belong. And I think that kind of for me sums the Dog Monocle up. It's belonging.
Yep.
And that, I think that's so important.
That's really cool. So now that you're 6 months in, you've got through some of those initial moments of friction and trying to work everything out, battling through some fears, and then obviously launching and operating and doing really well. What's the current challenge at the moment? Is there one particular thing, or is there a couple of things at the moment where you're sort of going, this is not something that's a horrible thing to deal with, but just a challenge of everyday business now that you're in the thick of it?
I mean, it's probably different challenges for Tess and I, given that Tess is sort of in the kitchen and constantly, working at the ideas around the menu and all of those sort of challenges. And I'm out on the floor. For me, it's time. When you are so DIY and so hands-on, we do all of our own graphics and social media. We do all of our own everything. So when part of our success relies on that communication, it means that I'm sort of always out here on the floor, but there's always those running the business kind of things that have to be done as well. And it's that really, really fine balance between I've got to get out there and interact with the people, which is what we love to do, but I also love that creative side of planning the next event and putting up new posters for things and new social media things, and just getting all of that in line can be just hard to balance the time. And we both have young families as well, so
mother guilt is huge in our world.
Absolutely. So it's like finding that little bit of time to also plan something that's going to be fun for the families, that make this whole thing worthwhile for them as well. So time is a big factor.
We just speaking of being like, incorporating the kids, they actually had the opportunity to cook for the Nowra show too, which was very exciting for them. And that's a nice opportunity for them to come and be part of our world and that sort of thing. But as far as challenges for me, I find myself challenging really. Yeah, I think sort of, again, just time is a big factor, and always wanting more time, but knowing that any extra time I get would be spent doing this. Yeah. Time.
It's probably just, and a little bit of what you said, Carly, with getting stuck in the operation of it, getting so overwhelmed, and not even overwhelmed, but just losing perspective because you're just so stuck in the everyday operation of the business, and not being able to take a step back and look at the bigger picture and be strategic or innovative and coming up with new ideas, opening up the mind for creativity, where you're sort of just stuck in the, okay, we open, we work, we close, all the steps that are needed on a day-to-day basis.
I don't think there's ever any fear that Tess and I won't prioritise creative time. That's just not how we operate. I think we might actually like wither up or something if we weren't creating something. It's that almost that zoom lens of constantly zooming in and then zooming back out again, and that trying to make your brain still work in that way. Okay, I'm back doing this, and then I've got a spare 5 minutes. Can I use that 5 minutes productively to contact that person and forge that relationship forward? And oh gosh, there's another customer that's walked in the door. All of that sort of thing is, yeah.
And with our events, sort of, I guess with any event, when you plan it, so much time and effort goes into the planning. But by the time you actually get around to the event, your body is here, but your mind's actually 3 months down the line for the next event. And I think that's probably, with hospitality, you don't always, or I find personally, you don't always get to relish in the moment of like, yeah, we created something awesome, which is really nice to have Carly on board, because she sort of forces me to stop and go like, no, Tess, look at the pictures that I took, and look at the happy faces, and to provide that feedback from the front of house to back of house that, people love the way you did those.
You're doing great things.
And it's, I think for me it's always like, what's next?
Yeah.
What next? But it's really nice to have someone stop you and go, no, we did something awesome today. Like, enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
And I think that's really nice to have that time to stop.
I'm sure at some point someone's going to get fed up with the fact that we've got a psychologist on board, but for now it's a novelty.
Take advantage of it while you can. So speaking of looking ahead, so coming up to the first 12 months of business and then beyond, what's on the horizon? Is it more just building what you have, or are you going to, just by what you've both been saying, the creative element's always going to be there. So do you have ambitious plans in the near future or long future?
I think we want to add to what we do. So one of the most important things for us when we opened was, and this is just as like an analysis of what we've seen happen within other business, or our perception of what's happened, and it's offering too much that you can't actually deliver on.
Yeah.
And it's been really important to us when we opened particularly I was out the front on the bar then, and that our drinks list reflected what we as humans were able to achieve with our staff levels, and to make sure that we constantly evolving, but we only offer what we can reasonably achieve. And so I think we're at a point now where the day-to-day runnings are kind of, we know what we're doing, it's a process. So we're starting to look at introducing things like hopsology, where Tim and Neil, our husbands, will come along. They've both got quite an extensive knowledge in whiskey and beer.
Good stuff.
So we'll offer afternoons where, we'll taste 3 whiskies, 3 beers, or we taste everything with rye in it and those sorts of things, and have an afternoon where people can come along and do like some mock trivia and those sorts of things. We're looking at introducing a high tea, and one of the things we're looking at having is, sort of more of those hens afternoons where we can actually make a cocktail with the group, and then they can sit and have a meal with us. So I think more sort of bite-size events will be in our, as well as our regular bill of events, just some bite-size.
And just looking forward to, knowing what is happening, that, we've done this one before. We actually have everything already sorted out in our mind for it. We're not doing it for the first time, which I'm sure will be tempered by very quickly us going, oh yeah, but we could do something else as well.
We could make it better.
Not short of an idea.
Let's do this and expand on it. So it's going to be really good to just see things tick over into a known place.
It's cool. It's exciting. From the outside looking in, just to see that this is far more than just your traditional place to eat and drink, and that's it. and just even going down the path of workshops or little afternoon events or sort of private gatherings where people can do something for an event, and just having all these additional options, and then having a space for art or people that are interested in a particular topic or an interest or whatever that might be. So the possibilities are endless. It's exciting.
Yeah, it is. It's awesome to actually be running something like this. This is, because it's only limited by our creativity, and it's all about pushing boundaries and being creative and doing what makes us happy. And I think if you look around the restaurant, if you look at our events, it's really just kind of like looking inside Carley and I, because this is ours, this is us. It's just us in a textile form.
It's fantastic. Well, I'll let you get back to setting up for the day, but thank you both so much for your time, and I'm looking forward to seeing, I don't know, what the next 6 months, next 12 months, next 5 years looks like.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
No problem. Thanks, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed that chat with Carley and Tess of the Dog Monocle. If you want to reach out to them and check out more of the business, you can go to both Facebook and Instagram and search for Dog and Monocle, DOGAND MONOCLE. As always, you can go to selfstarter.com.au, click on the show notes, where I will not only have the links to the Dog and Monocle, but everything that we spoke about in this episode, including, and I'll get to right now, the key highlights and takeaways from this episode. So if you were taking notes from this chat, no doubt you would have got more than 4 ideas or insights or takeaways from that episode. But for me, there was 4 clear standouts, which I really got excited about. And if I miss anything in the show notes or in these points here, please let me know. Please contact me. I'd love to be able to highlight additional things in upcoming blogs or podcasts. So make sure that you contact me and let me know what you think. Now, my 4 things. Number 1, this was very specific, and I don't know how intentional it was at the time, but the way that Tess explained it, it sounded like there was a bit of a method to the madness. But the taping up of the windows prior to the launch of the business, while they were fitting out the building, fitting out their store sounds so bland, fitting out their business, they had plastic covering the windows, but they allowed little areas of plastic to be opened up so people could glimpse in and get a peek into what they were doing. Whether people actually understood what was going on or not, there was enough mystery and enough of an opportunity for people to be intrigued where word would get out. People would start talking to say, look, I walked past that building and peeked in and I've got no idea what's going on in there, but wow, that looks really, really cool. I can't wait for that thing to open so I can go and check out and discover what it's all about. So a really cool tactic, especially if you've got a bricks and mortar store that you want to open up. But even if you're online, I'm sure there's a way that you can drip feed information, hype something up, give little teasers or little glimpses into something that's upcoming, whether it be an event or a product or a service or even your business as a whole. I'm sure there's a way that you can build hype by incrementally, adding little teasers along the way, which will no doubt get people excited, and you'll have a better response when it comes to the opening day or the opening launch of whatever that thing is that you're about to unleash to the public. The second thing is the connection with steampunk. Now, I'll be completely honest, I know bugger all about steampunk. It looks cool. Aesthetically, it looks amazing. And inside the Dog Monocle, if you ever get to go in there, please do. The ambience and the vibe is really, really cool. So for me, I'm intrigued, even on standing on the outside looking in and not understanding a great deal about that community. But what Carley and Tess have done is they've really tapped in and embraced the steampunk community by bringing people in and making the Dog and Monocle part of that community. So not only are they allowing a space within the Dog and Monocle for art to be displayed, but the wider community are actually using the Dog and Monocle now as a landmark, as a place for people to go. So in other words, if you're down the South Coast or you're in the Nowra area, make sure you stop by the Dog and Monocle if you're into steampunk. So not only are you tapping into the local community and getting them excited and interested in what you're doing, but you're tapping into a niche, into a group of like-minded people that share a similar passion. And as soon as you tap into something like that, that's where you get loyalty. And I think that's a fantastic thing that they've done. And no doubt that will increase and give them more and more business down the track as well. Now, the third thing that I've got here is the games element. I've seen a number of, especially in hospitality, a number of businesses that are starting to implement board games and card games and things like that to get people engaged and get people hanging around for longer and obviously, spending money, but more importantly, feeling comfortable in the area. And it's cool to see the Dog and Monocle do this. They've got a little bit of a thing with the game cave in Nowra where they get all their games from, and the guys at the game cave let them know when new games are available. And they also have the guys from Game Cave come in and have dinner once a week as well, which is a great local business connection there. And it's awesome to see that there's a place that people can go, have a couple of drinks, and just forget about everything for a few hours. I mean, the example that they said about the 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle and having a number of people sitting around that and just working on that for 4 or 5 hours is just really, really cool. And I think that lends to the atmosphere and the comfort that people are getting from going to the Dog Monocle. So really, really cool idea, and it's obviously working really well for them. The fourth thing that I've got, and this is a really important thing, this is the connection that they have with their customers. Now, I don't know about you guys, but for me, and I'm sure there's many people out there that are in the same boat as me, as you're dealing with day-to-day business, you're dealing with customers, you're dealing with people that you've got agreements with, a lot of the time we're focused so much on the transaction. We're focused on us supplying that person with whatever they've paid for, fulfilling an agreement and making sure that we close off that deal and making sure that person is happy and they get what they're after. But what we probably need to do a little bit more is actually have a conversation with people, ask them some questions that might not be related to what the job is at hand. And just understand a little bit more about their story, what they like, what they don't like, because you just never know. Not only are you building rapport with this person where they'll be more inclined to come back to you again in the future because you've taken that personal approach with them, but you never know. There might be an opportunity there where something can come out of that conversation where you find out that person has a background in something or is affiliated with something or has particular skills or something that you might actually be searching for. And the example that Carley mentioned where they were looking for a cause to link in with for an upcoming midwinter feast to do with flora and fauna, and having a few ideas but not really knowing where to go, having this customer that was coming in each week for lunch, and from having conversations with this person and chatting to them and understanding their story and who they are, they realized that this person was linked in to the area that they were looking for. And as a result now, it looks like they've now got a connection and a cause that they've got as a part of their midwinter feast that will be coming up later in the year. So that's just all from having a little bit of extra time to have a conversation and just dig into your customer and just get to know them a little bit more. So really, really cool. Such a simple concept of just talking to people, but we tend to forget about it when we're just flying through our day-to-day operation and getting immersed in just trying to fulfill an order or a deal or a contract or an agreement or whatever it might be. So something to take away there. Very small, but very effective. There were heaps of other things there. I'm going to put a bunch of stuff over in the show notes over at selfstarter.com.au. All right, folks, before we wrap up this episode, I want to say a big thank you to everybody that's been supporting the Self-Starter podcast and blog over the past several months. For me, personally, this has been such an eye-opener. I've learned so much about being self-employed, owning your own business, being a freelancer, and all those little tips and tricks and reassurances that have been absolutely huge from these amazing business owners that I've had on the podcast so far. And yes, while I will continue to highlight the Shoalhaven region from where I'm from, over the coming weeks and months, I will start to branch out into every little nook and cranny, every corner of this big country of ours. So if you're a small business owner, you're self-employed, or you're a freelancer from any part of Australia, please get in contact with me. It doesn't matter whether your story is small or otherwise. I'd love to hear from you, and quite possibly I might get you on the podcast at some stage down the track. So please reach out to me. Go over to selfstarter.com.au, check out the previous episodes of the podcast, go and read some of the blogs, and make sure you reach out to me and let me know what you think. All right, guys, until the next episode, take care, and we'll speak soon. Bye-bye.